Hello. So there's probably not going to be a lot of people here. It's Yenja with two A's at the end. So if you have any questions, this is a 10-minute live where you can ask anything you want about memory and basically like a free coaching session. Hi. So if you have any questions about memory or you have any video suggestions, I can talk about why I want to do certain videos, why I'm holding off on doing other videos. And if you have follow-up questions on any of the videos that I've made before, let me know. So how are you? I'm doing really good. Last week was a very intense week for a lot of reasons, but I'm doing very, very good. Alessio Spaziani writes, "Hi," 3 times. And how can I improve my memory, please? Well, the first thing I would say about improving your memory is that you should be subscribed to my channel. And if you actually watch the videos and do the tips and techniques in the videos, you will find that your memory improves. It is certainly possible. It isn't for you to just consume without applying. Everything that I say in my videos, you need to apply to be able to understand properly. Just watching the videos is not going to improve your memory. How to properly remember something long term. If you watch last week's video, I talk about how to repeat something in spaced intervals so that you can remember what you learned long term. Eva Sophie lurking. Hi. Josh Lee asks, "Are you still doing memory competitions?" Well, there is a virus situation happening in the world, so I am not in a competition. And if I can find the right people and the right time, I will definitely compete. I would like to travel occasionally and compete. I still have world records to break. I still want to improve my overall score, but I need some time and for more vaccine rollouts and for it to be done safely, both for my emotional well-being and for my physical well-being. Your hair are funny, lol. Okay. How to stop panicking. This one is hard. We are living in a very panicful time right now, so I can't really say. I would say meditating helps because you learn to be in a more active and intentional mode instead of a reactive mode. And usually when you panic, it's because you're in a reactive mode. You're having a reaction, basically. How can I join the Memory Championship? There are 3 main organizations, and then individual organizations in every country, I think, a lot of countries, and you can look them up. One is called GAMA or AMSA, so GAMA or AMSA. And then there is the World Memory Sports Council, and then there's the International Association of Memory, and those 3 organize the main bigger competitions, but there are always individual competitions all around the world. So that's how you can join a memory competition. Can you give me advice to memorize paragraphs? Okay, so a lot of these questions in the chat, I will just say, if you just go to my YouTube channel and then search for every subject matter, you will learn my opinion on how to join a memory competition. You will learn my opinion on photographic memory. You will learn how to memorize paragraphs. So the advice for memorizing paragraphs is in 2 videos. One is called How to Memorize a Speech, and the other video is called How to Memorize Word for Word. So that is how you can memorize that. How do you apply your memory course on learning code? Do you use any Nootropics? I don't know what Nootropics are, so if you can explain that, I can probably tell you if I don't, but considering I don't know what Nootropics are, I probably don't know what it is. But on learning code, so depending on what you're studying, everyone will ask, how do I use this to learn Chinese? How do I use this to learn like motor engine repair things? How do I learn to memorize my lines? How do I learn medical facts? The main thing about memory training in general is even if it seems really arbitrary to memorize a deck of cards or memorize a bunch of numbers or memorize a bunch of random names and faces, it is like strengthening your overall mental strength. So, in the same way that any sport you perform, you probably have to spend some time at the gym. Any mental task you perform, you should spend some time in your mental gym, and the mental gym being memory training. You don't see basketball players going out on the court and doing 10 push-ups, but God knows they're probably doing more than 10 push-ups in the gym. In the same way, I'm not actively using my trick of memorizing a deck of cards in 20 seconds when I'm learning how to code. But that ability to do that, that ability to be incredibly focused, that ability to see if I can actually recall what I've consumed, that has transversal effects, meaning overlapping effects on anything that I take on. The main technique with memory techniques, or the main benefit, I should say, is that you become incredibly able to focus your attention in one go. And then when you don't want to, you can also be extremely scatterbrained, which is super fun. So, хааштай шүү, бас бахархдаг шүү. Жил Хэлийн хорой тавигдахаар нутагтаа ирж сайхан амраарай. Yes. So this is a comment about returning to Mongolia once the quarantine slash um, border control is lessened in Mongolia. And that is my plan. I plan on going to Mongolia as soon as I can. Are you born with a photographic memory or did you learn it? Nobody is born with photographic memory. It can be up to like it can be a question of definition. Of course, there are people who can memorize a lot by just looking at it once, but photographic in terms of almost snapping a picture with your mind, that does not exist. At least so far, we've never recorded a legitimate case of it in our time. Takeru Aoki, wow, Yenja from Japan. Okay. Би таны фан шүү. Таныг үргэлж дэмжинэ. За, ёстой баярлалаа. Let's see. So for the my memory training on coding, it is a little bit easier because I don't have to look things up in the documentation as much. It's also easier because I was just able to focus for longer stretches of time without feeling the need to check notifications or check my phone or anything like that. And just when you do a lot of memory training, as we do for the worlds, especially, then you're training for hours at a time, sometimes 3 hours at a time, sometimes 6 hours if you're doing a really intense study session or memory training session. So for me, that was the biggest benefit, is that I just know how to sit down and do the work. Nootropics. Yeah, okay. So nootropics, I've tried some nootropics that give you an edge if you already put in the work. So in the same way, if you take any type of like muscle increasing or fat reducing pill, if it works, if it works at all, if you don't put in the work of working out or adjusting your nutrition, it does not matter. Like, you can't live your normal life and then just take the whatever pill to make you have the physical gains, so to speak. And in the same way, if you put in the memory training work or the study work or the focused attention work, then it can help you a little bit, but it also depends on the person. It also depends on the company and the dosage and so much. It helps a little bit, but it's not like limitless where you can just become superhuman by taking a pill. And anyone who says that there is a pill that makes you focused for a very long time or whatever it is, it always has adverse effects on your long-term neurocognition. How do you create images in international names? I don't create images in international names as much. I just kind of try to, this is a very weird way of saying it, but I just try to dance with the person, meaning I just try to feel an emotional connection with whatever name I'm trying to memorize. And sometimes if they have a particular name, like if somebody looks like a Chad and their name is Chad, then that just makes me laugh. So not out loud, but it makes me laugh enough for me to remember it. So that's how I do it, and I don't always have to do images, and that's actually something that a lot of people with aphantasia, the inability to see things in their mind's eye, ask me about is, "How do I use the memory palace technique when I can't even visualize?" Or, "It's very hard for me to, improve my imagination." And the thing is that it is possible to increase your ability to imagine, but not all of the memory palace technique is about imagining. It's also about story creating and narrative because we are, in my opinion, better at remembering narrative than we are at remembering visuals. But I don't think the general memory consensus has reached that point yet. Um, let's see. Монгол хүүхдүүд лөө чиглэсэн ажил хийх гэдэгт итгэж байна. Well, I'm trying to collaborate with some people. The question is, I hope that you create work that is focused towards helping Mongolian kids. I am trying. I'm trying to collaborate with people so that I can help in a major way instead of on an individual case by case basis, or like some people choose to do, only helping the 100K people who live in Zasung. I don't believe in that. I believe you have to help. You want to help as many people as possible in the most efficient way as possible instead of focusing on only rich people. Um, Hi, Anja. How often do you review the new words you learn from Stiger A? How do you review the new words you learn? So with the Drops app, there's actually a thing called the Dojo. So that's a tab that tells me these words are ripe for reviewing. So that's really helpful. Otherwise, it's just if I if I know I've learned a word in, let's say, Brazilian Portuguese, and I can't think of it, I just try to sit with it and try to remember it. And this is something I talk about in my video, how to improve memory in 1 minute, or 1 minute to improve memory, I think it's called, is that when you know something, but it's not coming to you right now, you can either choose to ignore it or you can try to sit with it. Now, the important disclaimer that I should have put in the video is that you don't want to sit with it for long enough that an emotional memory of you not being able to remember gets etched into your mind. You want to have a feeling of, oh, I could have gotten it if I spent one more minute, or I'm actually training my memory. So even if it doesn't get, if even if it doesn't come to me at this moment, this is good for my memory. So a lot of memory is also about self-fulfilling prophecies, meaning your mindset and your ability to believe that you can remember. Yes. Um, how do you memorize words? Do you split the word into pieces or you create a single image, and how do you do it? For competitions, I try to combine as many words as possible. In German and Swedish, we have sammansatta ord, like combined words. So you can just make one funny image out of two words, but you can do it in English too. It just is more natural for those of us who can make endless long strings of words. And for language learning, sometimes I split it up if it's a very long word. And the point is not to always see the imagery in your mind, like pasty boy is how you say manatee, I think. And it basically means fish and then floating. But I remembered it as pasty boy, but I'm not always going to think of a pasty boy when I think of manatee. Eventually, the mnemonic that I use will disappear, and I will only stay with pasty boy is automatically the imagery of manatee, if that makes sense. So the devices you use to try to the little mnemonic tricks, the little mental tricks you do to try to remember something, you only needed sort of like training wheels. It's quite brutal if you try to teach a kid how to ride a bike without training wheels, but if you have the training wheels and then you start trying to do just the bicycle, that's kind of how I use mnemonic devices. So you have a little bit of a training wheel and then you don't need to remember it forever. Baccio, okay. Have you studied Italian in your multi-language journey? A little bit, yeah. I spent some time in Sicily and Rome and Milano. Um, will it be too late for a 40-year-old mother to learn memory? Asks Queen D799. Absolutely not. There are actually lots of people. 40 is so young That's so young. I mean, like, it feels weird for me to say that maybe, but 40 is so young. There are so many people in the competitions who are 60 and up who can memorize a deck of cards in at least less than 5 minutes, if not less than 2 minutes. So 40 is super, super young, and it's super possible to improve your memory at that age. Hmm. When you train, how often do you train? What do you think is a good amount of time? It depends. If you've never done memory training before, trying to memorize something for just a minute and then trying to recall it, trying to remember it after, um, let's see, I'm a little pressed for time. Okay, 5 more minutes. Trying to spend 1 minute and then memorizing, and then 2 minutes trying to remember what you memorized is a good start. It is like a muscle. You don't wanna do, like, a marathon if you've only sat on your couch the previous 60 days. Like, you wanna build up toward it. So, at the highest level of competition, you're able to focus for about 90 minutes to 180 minutes at a time, I think. And but in the beginning, I would just say, like, ease into it, lean into it. Um How many memory palaces and memory rooms do you have? I actually don't know. I've tried to make a spreadsheet about every single location, but sometimes I build rooms out and make them more detailed and fit more stuff in it, or I extend memory palaces, or I connect memory palaces, and then I don't really know. Hmm. Hi, Miss Yandra. I'm such a fan. My question is, what is the best age to start memory training? Will I still be able to catch up in 20s? Yeah, of course. The best people in the world, it's a wide range of people in their teens and 20s and 30s. It's not too late at all. Who's your favorite memory champion ever? Myself. I love myself. Who's my favorite memory champion ever? This is very hard. I will say the people who have been the most helpful in it's very hard. I love a lot of people in memory, but, um, the people who immediately come to mind is Jonas von Essen and Nelson Dellis. They've really helped me in a lot of situations, outside memory and in and around memory, and it's been really helpful to have them. And actually, for my first memory competition, I couldn't afford to go, and I was waiting for my student stipend, but I needed to buy the ticket before I got my student stipend, so I asked Jonas to lend me, like, $1,000 or something, and he was like, "Okay." And it was, like, so, so nice of him. And Johannes Malo also, like, paid for food and stuff when I was, like, super poor, so they've been very helpful too. There's probably lots more memory champions that I love that I just can't think of now because it's, like, an overwhelming amount of images in my mind right now. Um, let's see. Boo, boo, boo. Let's see. Hi, I'm someone who predominantly thinks in words. I tend to argue, discuss a particular concept. I've come to realize that my general visual memory is very poor. So you might have missed that. It was earlier in the live, but um, it's not a big problem. You can increase your ability to imagine and have visual memory, but a lot of the memory pass technique in particular, I do think is actually more about being in that physical space in your mind, feeling it, and then creating a story more than seeing the images. And why I know that is because, at least for me, when I watch a movie, what stays with me isn't necessarily all the cool shots and everything that I saw and like all the cinematography. Apologies to any cinematographers out there, but what stays with me is the story, and if the story doesn't make sense, then you don't remember the movie, or you remember how bad the movie was. And in the same way, when you read books, sure, you get images in your mind when you read it, at least for me, but what stays with me more is the feeling of it and the story of it. So words are usually very helpful. If you can make a story around it, you can learn a lot. Um, how many hours do you use to train per day for the World Memory Championship? My best year, which is documented in the documentary Memory Games on Netflix. The best year I've ever competed, even though 2 of my world records came the year after, the strongest I was emotionally, mentally, and memory-wise, I was training about an hour a day, but an hour to 3 hours a day on some days, and then I would also work out a lot, and that was a huge difference. "More book recommendations, please," says Cheryl Hull. "Tell me in which category, and I'll give you all of the my recommendations." Um, what do you miss about the world before COVID? I loved my life before COVID, so I I miss not having to do so many mental gymnastics to be able to work. Like, I have to, like, quarantine or, I did a job last year which required me to take, like, COVID tests every single if not every single day, like, at least every other day, and that was pretty hard. Um, do you think it's possible to memorize 1,000,000 digits of pi? Um, I don't yeah, I think it is possible, for sure, because when I started memory training, it was, like, impressive if you could memorize a deck of cards in 20 seconds, and now lots of people can do it, and, I remember that one of the Mongolian, kids, actually, she said she could memorize a deck of cards in 13 seconds, but she just got very stressed in competitions, and there was a video of her doing it, and I told everybody, like, "Oh, there's this Mongolian girl, she can memorize a deck of cards in 13 seconds," and nobody believed me, but then a couple of years later, she did it then um, Shijire, he was sorry, I'm mixing up a lot of names right now. Shijire, a Mongolian dude who I think works in California now, he was able to memorize it in 13 seconds, and just like a couple years earlier, everybody was like, "That's impossible. I don't think that's possible." Um, so I think whatever we think is impossible right now is probably gonna be proven to be pretty possible soon. Um Does IQ play a significant role in memory training? No. No, no. There are lots of people who are, I would say, not very IQ is a very specific type of smart. I believe there's so many ways to be smart. Bragging about your IQ is like whatever. Um, IQ is a very specific type of smart. I don't think it's necessarily overlapping to be strong at memory and have good IQ test results. Um Sammy Pebbles writes, "You're allowed to say there are dumber people using memory techniques." Yes. So there are some people who are, like, absolute really good at memory. Maybe not, like, top. No, there's, like, 1 or 2 top tier people who are, like, not the brightest, but they can memorize hundreds of digits in a few minutes, so what's your go-to mnemonic for remembering conversation? Attention is the most important, but I would also say reviewing after you've had the interaction. So you talk to somebody and then you don't have to like make a spreadsheet about all the things you talked about, but just being mindful and thinking about, that person said that. What does that mean? And not overthinking, but just like kind of sitting with it instead of immediately jumping to the next thing you want to do. I think we think it's so good to jump from task to task to task, but it's actually better to sit with tasks. And on that topic, I need to wrap up. So like one last question. Hmm. Do-do-do. Tashigyatso, hello, beautiful Yanja. I guess that's not a question. Um, okay, I think this is a good last question. Zaina MD asks, "Hi, Anja. Have you ever been able to do good memory training without being able to focus? With acquired brain injury, I have a hard time focusing." So actually, the last person I coached, um, there have been a couple of people I've coached in recent years that have had brain injuries or other medical treatments that significantly reduce their ability to use their brain fully. And what we find is that in general, they don't have a hard time with the memory training because is tapping into such a it is tapping into both such a higher function and such a like like just like a base human need function, which is like feeling and imagery and storytelling, that it they find it easy to use the memory techniques. And and imagine somebody not being able to focus for like a little bit of a stretch for just reading one paragraph in a textbook to being able to read the entire chapter and talking through it with me. So I have to answer your question, I have been able to do good memory training without being able to focus because once you reach a level of ability within memory training, even when you're a little bit unfocused, you can still do it pretty well. It's sort of like even if you feel weak, if you're very physically strong, you're gonna be able to do, like, 10 push-ups, but if you've never done 10 push-ups, then it's gonna be really hard. But if you were already pretty fit and you feel a little sluggish that morning, then you can still do it. So it's about kind of raising your raising your C game, meaning you wanna improve your memory enough that your worst is still quite good, and that's how I think about that. So, yeah. And don't fret, age is really not an issue in this world, and neither is, um, yeah, neither is a lot of things that might seem to hinder our cognition. I don't know what the extent of that is, but in general, you'll be fine. Just try it out, and you'll see that it's really, really helpful. So I'm so happy and so grateful you watched this live. I'm hoping I can do more of them, and hopefully next week there will be a new video. Love you guys. Bye.